It's Monday, September 30th, 2024, and right now on CNN This Morning. War in the Middle East, more airstrikes in Lebanon's capital city, days after the assassination of Hezbollah's leader. Plus, Helene's destruction, hundreds reported missing, and millions without power as communities across 6 southeastern states are left devastated.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
For 90 minutes, Governor Walz and I are going to debate the issues that matter to the American people.
One day away, how Tim Walz and J.D. Vance are readying for tomorrow night's vice presidential debate. And
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way.
Personal attacks. Donald Trump doubling down on insults, leaving some GOP allies urging him to stay on message. 6 a.m. here in Washington, and here's a live look at the Capitol. Good morning, everyone. I'm Manu Raju, in for Casey Hunt. It's so great to be with you. Now, just days after taking out the leader of Hezbollah, Israel strikes more targets in Lebanon. And earlier this morning, an airstrike hitting the center of Beirut for the first time in nearly a year. The Lebanese government blaming Israel. CNN has reached out to the IDF for comment. Now, Hezbollah vowing to keep fighting, still firing missiles into northern Israel, where more than 60,000 residents have been forced to evacuate. And this morning, a Hezbollah official saying that the group will appoint a new leader as soon as possible. President Biden wary of a wider regional war breaking out, saying that this must be avoided at all costs.
It has to be. We really have to avoid it. And we've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave. But we're not there yet, but we're working like hell with the French and many others.
Now, with 5 weeks to go before the election, Israel's war with Hezbollah also becoming a focus of pointed debate in Washington, with some Republicans urging Israel to, quote, go for the kill.
Now is not the time for a ceasefire or to de-escalate as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want. Hezbollah is on its knees. The United States should help Israel drive Hezbollah to the mat and choke it out and finish it off once and for all.
All right, let's bring in David Frum, staff writer with The Atlantic, CNN senior political analyst Mark Preston, Megan Hayes, former Biden White House director of message planning, and Scott Jennings, former special assistant to George W. Bush. Thank you guys all for being here this early morning. Megan, since you worked at the White House, I'm going to start with you about how President Biden navigates this moment. He's calling for a ceasefire, but he's not on the same page with Netanyahu on this. How is he going to deal with this?
I think that they're looking to de-escalate through diplomatic channels. Obviously, I think, they are walking a fine line here. Also, the vice president has to walk a fine line here. She has to support the president while still running. So I think they are going to continue their diplomatic efforts, but we're going to be having the same conversation in 20 years probably because there needs to be stability, but I just don't know that we're going to find it before the election. So,
yeah, I think we'll be having the same conversation if we try to stop Israel from finishing the job here. I totally agree with Tom Cotton. I mean, Netanyahu is doing something extraordinary. He's wiping out all the worst people in the world systematically. They're taking it to these terrorists who have done terrible, terrible things to Israel, Israelis, and American citizens, by the way, for a very long period of time. And I think the U.S. government ought to rhetorically be as supportive as we can possibly be and not try to slow walk this the way we did Ukraine in the beginning. We won't give them the long-term missiles they want now, too. It's like we're constantly pulling back on our allies who are trying to defeat the people who hate our way of life and hate Western civilization. I don't understand it.
But what's the risk in the U.S. getting deeper involved in this conflict?
Well, I mean, obviously the risk is that we're going to see that war come over here to the streets of the United States. We're going to see Hezbollah trying to operate here in the U.S. Look, I agree with Scott that Israel has to do what it has to do to protect itself, but to not think that there's got to be some kind of two-state solution at some point means that we're going to be fighting this forever. And I would say this, and honestly, I do agree with Scott on a few things, but anyway, but
not sports.
You're cooked now, Preston.
Well, I would say this is kind of like reading Rainbow this morning. If you look around, everyone grabbed a newspaper, except for me. No, but Scott, I would say this: you are wiping out people and you are killing their leadership. You can't wipe out an ideology, though. And I think that's where the U.S. and Israel has got to figure out how to walk that fine line.
Overnight, Hamas confirmed that Israel killed the head of Hamas in Lebanon. That man's day job was he was principal of a UN school and head of the UN Teachers Union. Now, in a very short time, to this point, the UN had completely denied this man's involvement in Hamas, but Hamas itself confirmed it. In a very little while, American taxpayers are going to be asked to pay billions and billions of dollars to reconstruct Gaza. And that money is going to flow through the same UN that has been an employment agency for Hamas, a front group for Hamas. And one of the questions as we look forward, one of the questions whoever is going to be the next president, is what guarantees are you going to give Americans when they are asked to rebuild Gaza from the war Hamas started, that you're not simply paying the UN to employ Hamas people in the future?
Speaking, because this is during, obviously, a consequential presidential campaign, which is, of course, 5 weeks away. What is Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza? Has he laid it out yet? Has he specified that?
I don't know what his plan is to end the war there. My hope is that his plan is to do everything we can do to support Israel and what they're doing right now, wiping out systematically all these people who are committing terrorism, have committed terrorism against the United States, and not constantly be pulling on our enemies, trying to pull them down. I just fundamentally, this two-state solution idea, I mean, it's what Biden says. How do you have two states when one of the states wants the other state to cease to exist, to wipe them off the map, to murder them? I don't understand how you have people living side by side in this sort of, fantasy where one side lays down its ideology that the other side cannot exist. And so I think the plan ought to be let the Israelis do what they need to do to be secure, let them kill the terrorists, who, by the way, have done fundamentally terrible things to people in the United States and American citizens, and, as he just said, fundamentally kind of rigged the international system in their favor in a way that has allowed all kinds of money to flow to people who do very, very bad things.
Does Harris need to speak out more? I mean, she did make a statement over the weekend over the killing of the Hezbollah leader, but does she need to do more, speak out, respond to some of these Republican comments about
I don't know what
wiping away Hezbollah?
I don't know what more she can respond, right? I don't know what we're not doing to be supportive of Israel. There is we held back one shipment of munitions. So I'm not sure what you're saying that the U.S. isn't doing to be supportive. So I'm not sure what more she can be saying. It's also, she's the vice president, so the president's making the decision. So I feel like she's in a little bit of a hard bind here, but I don't think her support of Israel has been unwavering. She has made that very clear. She continues to make that clear. So what more are we looking for her to say here?
All right, okay. We'll see if they decide to weigh in more as the campaign continues to unfold. And up ahead on CNN this morning, the latest on recovery efforts after Hurricane Helene in the wake of the storm's devastation and destruction across the Southeast. Plus, GOP allies urging Donald Trump to stick to the issues. Heard that before? After he repeats more personal insults aimed at the vice president. And ahead of tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, Kamala Harris is challenging her opponent to another debate of their own.
Listen, also, their debate should not be the last word. I'm trying to debate Donald Trump again, and I think he should debate again.
I'm CNN's John King. Join me for the podcast All Over the Map, where I'm traveling across the country to find out what American voters think, what frustrates them, what gives them hope, and what may motivate them to go into the voting booth. Nevada is not just a battleground in this presidential election.
I know that Hispanics have made a difference in a lot of elections.
The economic anxiety that you find all across the country, well, you will find it on steroids right there. Listen to All Over the Map wherever you get your podcasts.
At least 95 people are dead following Hurricane Helene's deadly path through the Southeast. Western North Carolina is dealing with catastrophic and historic damage, where at least 30 people were killed when record flooding overwhelmed areas in and around Asheville. Now, officials say they also have reports of hundreds of people unaccounted for there, but they hope those numbers will go down as communications knocked out by the storm slowly get back online. Now, more than 200 people have been rescued from floodwaters across North Carolina, with teams from 19 states coming in to assist. But North Carolina is just beginning to tackle what will be a long road to recovery.
This is a devastating catastrophe of historic proportions. people that I talk to in Western North Carolina say they have never seen anything like this. This is just truly unprecedented in the devastation that we have seen here. The good thing is that we are prepared for disasters. We have 24 shelters that are up now, providing assistance to people. The biggest issue we're finding now is getting the food and the water to people because we're having to do so much of that by air.
CNN's Maribel Gonzalez is in Asheville, North Carolina, the site of all that devastation. So, Maribel, what are you seeing?
Good morning, Mano. That's exactly correct. This is a dire situation here in Asheville. It's eerily quiet, except for the sound of those bulldozers working through the debris, trying to clear out those streets. Now, people here thousands are without power, but they're also without water, internet, electricity, including right here where we're standing. Roads remain closed, hundreds of them. This one right behind me as well. Where we're standing just days ago was covered in water, and you can see this by just looking down at the ground. All of the debris was pushed over by the street onto the hill where we're now standing. And of course, this is yet to be over. This is just starting, as you mentioned. This is now also a public health emergency. As we know, people have been now for several days without water, and that also means, they cannot clean their areas. The trash is not being taken out. We know the food in their fridge is now beginning to rot. So people are in desperate need. We know that here also in Asheville, so many people evacuated their homes. 3 shelters open here in the area, one of which we're now learning this morning is completely full. So the need is definitely there. We know federal aid is coming in, but as we mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge is trying to access those homes. You mentioned those power and those internet, cell phone outages. Over the weekend, we know there were at least 600 reports and counting of people calling desperately, trying to find their missing loved ones. But authorities are saying, please remain calm, because when those internet and cell phone services are restored, that's hopefully when you can begin to be in touch with your loved ones. We also know that across several states, there's been millions of power outages. Here in North Carolina alone, 450,000 people remain without power. So the situation is a desperate one, but we can hear it in the very early morning hours. There are emergency crews out right now at this hour trying to get to those folks, trying to clear out those hundreds of road closures to hopefully not only get people out, but also get emergency supplies in.
Yeah, as the governor said, a tragedy of historic proportions. Just unbelievable pictures that are on your screen. Maribel Gonzalez, thank you for that live report from on the ground in Asheville. And coming up on CNN this morning, an airstrike in the heart of Beirut, when more than 1 million people in Lebanon now displaced following waves of Israeli airstrikes. Plus, the running mates are set to take the stage just 1 day away from the VP debate. We'll discuss how both camps are readying themselves for debate night.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So
I'd love to have a second debate. We've actually offered Tim Walz a second debate, and they've totally rejected it. But look, I actually think that you should have to earn this job.
All right, expect some fireworks tomorrow night when VP candidates Tim Walz and J.D. Vance face off in their first and only debate just over a month before Election Day. And now with new polling showing a tightening race in the key battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin, both tickets are looking for any opportunity to edge ahead. Walz preparing with mock debate sessions with his team in northern Michigan and fighting off nerves. That's according to our reporting from our colleague CNN's Isaac Dover. Vance also engaging in intense prep sessions, but he downplayed them in recent rallies.
Going great. Thank you, guys.
You get out there, you talk to people, you talk about the issues that matter. We don't need to prepare for a debate with Tim Walz.
All right, my panel is back. So, David, you write in The Atlantic, you say the headline is J.D. Vance's thin skin makes him vulnerable.
Yeah.
Why?
Look, a presidential or vice presidential debate is not like a spelling bee. You're not asked to name all the 50 state capitals. What it is it's a contest where each tries to reveal the inner character of the other. That's what Vice President Harris successfully did to Donald Trump, that she put the mirror up to him and showed America what is inside this man, and it's horrible. And so that is the tactic that each of them are going to try to do. And with Vance, you've got someone, I mean, I've known him for a long time. You've got someone who's very brittle. You've got someone whose public persona is a fake. That's the reason he keeps attacking Tim Walz as a phony. Tim Walz, whatever you think of Tim Walz, he is what he is. But Vance is a phony, and that is the. I mean, he's someone who, when that is exposed, becomes very petulant, very peevish, very angry, and very controlling. And that's going to be the task at this debate: is can Walz successfully hold the mirror up, keep it there, and let America see what its choice is?
Will Vance take the bait the way Trump did?
I think it'll be a much different kind of debate. And I agree with you about Walz, actually. He is what he is, and he is probably the person who is most in over their head in American politics right now. There's a reason they don't let him talk to the press. There's a reason he doesn't have any extended interactions where he's answering complicated questions, like what he should face at this debate. And so I think there's a lot of pressure on him here, honestly, to prove that he is up to this. Now, being up to the job of vice president, it's a lower bar for most people who will be watching it, and I don't expect this to move numbers or, to have a huge impact on the flow of the water in this race. But I think Vance is far more schooled at the issues at the core of this campaign than Walz is, and he has an opportunity to show that Walz was a fundamentally weak pick by Harris. And I think that will be his goal for Tuesday night.
Let's show viewers about what they have debated, what they look like in the past, and their past debates, Walz and Vance.
I'm proud of Minnesota's response. I'm proud of Minnesota's first responders who were out there, from firefighters to police to the National Guard to citizens that were out there.
You heard it here. Governor Walz just told you, I am proud of Minnesota's response, referring to the riots in May and June of 2020. Wow.
In Youngstown, on the stage, Donald Trump said to J.D. Vance, all you do is kiss my ass to get my support. He said that. That's bad.
I'm not going to take lectures on dignity and self-respect from a guy caught on video kissing up to Chuck Schumer and begging him for a promotion to his next job.
I mean, is it just setting low expectations when the Walz people close to Walz are saying, well, he's not a good debater, he's nervous about it, or is there a concern that he's not a good debater?
I mean, I think he's owned that he was not a good debater, but I also think that that's what we do, right? Everyone's setting the expectation low. This doesn't matter. It's not going to move the numbers, which is true. But a lot of this campaign cycle has been dictated by some comments that J.D. Vance has made in the past, and so I think this could drive a news cycle for a couple of days, just like his childless cat lady comments, and he keeps doubling down. So where I don't think it matters to move numbers, I do think that they have the opportunity to drive a news cycle, and with 35 or 37 days left, I don't think that's a good place for them to be. So I think if they can stick to the issues and we can move on, I think that they will do no harm.
And do no harm is really the ultimate goal here.
It is the ultimate goal. And look, I do think Walz is probably nervous. I do think that J.D. Vance is not nervous and is pretty confident in whether or not he does what David says he does or predicts what he does. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. But I do think that he is the most loose.
Yeah. Okay.
No, the rule is do harm and do it on the other guy. The clip that people need to see is the moment where it was in Detroit and the local Fox News affiliate gave J.D. Vance a total softball question. What makes you smile? And as that reporter revealed, he was a friendly reporter. He was looking for a soft angle. And Vance suddenly turned angry, called the man names, and then emitted this kind of cackling, self-congratulatory laugh afterwards. And you think, that is a troubled soul. And that's the thing what America has to see is the oldest president ever, the man who would be the oldest president ever, has a 40-year-old vice president, and there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, we'll see how voters ultimately react. Do they agree with you or disagree with you? We shall see. All right, still to come on CNN this morning, strikes in Lebanon overnight as tensions in the region reach a boiling point. CNN's Ben Wiedemann is live from Beirut. Plus, Donald Trump's latest attacks against Kamala Harris get personal again, despite warnings from his political allies.
I have a
lot of projects I'm juggling right now.
Allison is taking on a whole new set of renovations and deadlines.
The only way you enter the laundry room is through the powder room. Yes. No. The project is 3 months past the original deadline. It looks so good. We're right on time. No.
And that's when she's at her best.
That is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. It's stunning! To be able to take it to a different level is why I'm here.
Windy City Rehab, all new Tuesday night at 8 on HGTV.
Earlier this morning, airstrikes hitting the Lebanese capital. It's the first time Beirut has been hit since the Israel-Hamas war broke out in the region nearly a year ago. Israel's military has not yet claimed responsibility, but CNN has reached out for comment. This just the latest in a series of escalations in the region over the past several days. Over the weekend, Israel killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. And this morning, a Hezbollah official vowed the group would choose a new leader as soon as possible. And overnight, the Israel military continued its airstrikes against Hezbollah strongholds in southern Lebanon.
The command structure has been nearly decimated. Thousands of missiles and drones destroyed by Israel over the last few days. There's no question that the Hezbollah today is not the Hezbollah that it was even just a week ago.
Now, a U.S. official tells CNN that the Biden administration suspects that Iran is preparing to retaliate and is working with Israel on defenses. CNN's Ben Wiedemann is live on the scene of one of the morning strikes in Beirut. So, Ben, tell us what you're seeing on the ground.
Yeah, we're in an area, Manu, that is not normally under the control of Hezbollah. But last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll just step out of the way, there was a very targeted airstrike on the fifth floor of this building. According to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, 4 people were killed. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine has said that 3 of their members were killed in that strike. Now, it's interesting that the PFLP has not been particularly active in recent years, and it appears that perhaps Israel is simply slowly eliminating its enemies beyond Hezbollah, beyond those factions who've been firing into Israel. And in fact, this building behind me, it looks like it's structurally unstable. We see one of the columns sticking out. Now, in the meantime, at midday local time, just about an hour and a half ago, Naim Qassem, who's one of the senior deputies of Hassan Nasrallah, came out and gave a recorded speech, we believe, just about 25 minutes long. He did say that regarding Hezbollah, we did not collapse. We're going on despite the pain and sacrifices. He said that Hezbollah will continue to confront Israel and support the Palestinians and Gaza and the Lebanese people. So the message seems to be from Hezbollah that despite these repeated body blows, the elimination of almost the entire military hierarchy, senior hierarchy within the organization, at least they say they're going to continue. Now, above me right now, we hear a very low-flying Israeli drone. This has become sort of the background sound to Beirut, particularly the southern suburbs where, of course, Hezbollah has a very strong presence. Meanwhile, we heard, Manu, from the Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati that they estimate now that there are 1 million people in Lebanon who have had to flee their homes. That's just a little less than 20% of the entire population of this country.
Ben Wiedemann on the ground in a dangerous moment in Beirut. Ben, stay safe. Thank you for bringing us that reporting. And now to continue this conversation, I want to bring in former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, Joel Rubin. Joel, thank you so much for coming in this morning. Those are some incredible pictures that we just saw on the ground there. What is Israel's end goal here as the U.S. is trying to push to ceasefire? You heard President Biden over the weekend. What is Israel trying to accomplish?
Yeah, look, this was without a doubt the most stunning Israeli military success since the Six-Day War. Quite frankly, it flipped the narrative in the Middle East, and what we've seen now is Israel on the offense. But there are a lot of lessons learned from the Six-Day War. one of which is that Israel did not secure diplomatic gains immediately after it. And I think that's what the big question is what is the diplomatic strategy to complement these military successes? How is Israel going to leverage this for stability in the north, an agreement potentially with the Lebanese government to provide that stability? What's it going to do to obtain a ceasefire in Gaza to get the hostages back? That's not clear. So right now what we're seeing is essentially a military first and only strategy. And that's the big yellow light right now. Strong military action, effective, good, but there needs to be a way to lock in those gains.
Yeah, and there's obviously real concern about Iran and this retaliatory strike. What does that look like, and what are the implications if that happens?
Well, I think right now Iran's on its back heels. I think that there were many analysts for many years looking at this saying that could be the big one, Israel versus Iran, and that would blow up the region. And certainly that is a concern. But Iran has to be taking stock right now of what the risks are to it if it were to engage militarily. Not only does it have an Israel which clearly sees freedom of action and has decimated the northern hedge that Iran placed in southern Lebanon, but Iran also has to stare down the barrel of American military power in the seas, in the Persian Gulf and in the Mediterranean, saying if you do attack Israel, we will respond on their behalf. And I think for Iran, they have to really recalibrate whether it's worth it.
And just very quickly, is it possible, as some Republicans are calling for, to simply decimate, wipe out Hezbollah, don't stop till they're gone?
Hezbollah has been entrenched for 40 years. There is a way to decimate its leadership capacity, as is being done right now, and to try to undermine its military network of rockets. But that is a hard, fanciful idea to measure and ensure that it does so without creating a devastating situation in Lebanon, and that would be destabilizing for the entire region.
Yeah, no question. So much to assess here. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Joel, for coming in and bringing in your expertise. We really appreciate it. And straight ahead on CNN this morning, we're just one day away from the one and only VP debate. J.D. Vance and Tim Walz meeting in New York tomorrow. I'll speak with a longtime political advisor, Mark McKinnon, about what they each need to accomplish. Plus, stay on message, what some GOP allies are urging the former president to do in light of his latest insults on Kamala Harris.
And here's what I would tell President Trump. When people look at the state of play, they trust you on the economy, the border, inflation, and foreign policy by wide margins. Focus on those.
Kamala is mentally impaired. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. If you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country.
In a speech this weekend that was otherwise centered on immigration, Donald Trump veered off into personal attacks against his opponent, Kamala Harris. He first called her, quote, mentally impaired during an event in Wisconsin on Friday, and then repeated that attack in Pennsylvania yesterday.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad. But lying Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala. And I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
All right, my panel is back. Scott Jennings, effective line of attack? Would you encourage the leader of your party to continue this route?
Well, I would not use the term mentally disabled. I think it's fine. I mean, people in politics call their opponents stupid all the time, or they're dumb, they made bad decisions. I mean, I was just doing a quick review of headlines in the last few weeks this morning. Trump, blind being led by the stupid. Trump voters, they're stupid. Trump unveils idiotic new strategy to win over Harris supporters. Lazy, stupid, childish, why Donald Trump is losing. A simple example of the bigotry and terrible nature of Donald Trump's supporters. Harris herself, Donald Trump, unable to comprehend anything. So it's not uncommon for people to call Donald Trump, his supporters, and the people around him stupid or idiotic or whatever. So this kind of rhetoric is not uncommon. The term mentally disabled I would not use. And I think they should not go down that road. But I mean, everybody's up in arms about this. when it's pretty common for people to do this to Trump and his
Is
people.
it the same thing?
No, I don't think it's the same thing. It's like reporters and us making these comments versus the two candidates doing that. I think it's disrespectful, and I think you expect more from your leadership. I do agree with you on the mentally disabled. I think that's like a really inappropriate term to be using here. But I also understand that he's trying to make a contrast. I just think that there are other ways and better ways that he could show his leadership in making a different contrast and sticking to the issues like the economy.
What should he say? Should he say, look, I want to talk about the issues. I want to talk about my plan to allow health insurance companies to deny coverage again to people with pre-existing conditions. I want to talk about my plan to build a network of concentration camps to hold 10 million people and then dump them all in Mexico, wherever they came from before and without regard to what the Mexicans think. I have a plan to make Social Security's finances less stable. I mean, because the issues are not going to work for him, that's why the genius of Donald Trump was to understand, look, the Paul Ryan message doesn't sell. What does sell in America is racialized contempt. So that is what I'm going to offer. I mean, plus Paul Ryan, but racialized contempt. And that has always been the core of the message. That is the message. So when he's not off message, he's on it. And he's always understood television better than any of the other people in the Republican Party to say, what does galvanize the people who support Trump, who rejected better, cleaner, more decent, more intelligent Republicans in the past, who rejected Mitt Romney, although Mitt Romney got more of the vote. What is Trump's special sauce? Racialized contempt. So of course he's going with that as his closing argument.
What do you think?
I feel like I've fallen out of a coconut tree, because the idea that I'm outraged that he said this weekend is absurd at this point, because we're at a point in politics where, unfortunately, yes, it is disrespectful, and yes, it shouldn't be said, and yes, we should expect more from our leaders, but the reality is that's not what we're getting. So sometimes you have to play the field that you are given.
But, even if you say this is somewhat common in your view, people disagree, or but the real risk is that this becomes a race about character, right? For Trump, instead of focusing on policy, do you want this race to be about Donald Trump's character versus Harris's character?
Every presidential campaign is a race about character, and I disagree that it's because I also think it's a race about issues, and I disagree with you that the issues aren't working for Trump. I mean, the fact is, in all the polling we've done, the Gallup poll, everything that's come out in the last few days, they trust him more on the economy, they trust him more on immigration, they trust him more on foreign policy. So the issues actually are working for him. To what extent this is the correct vector right now when you have this issue set that is quite clearly working for you, I think that's a debating point for a campaign strategy, but I just disagree. I think the issues are setting up quite nicely for him.
I think they're working for his base, and I think these comments are working for his base. I'm just not so sure they're going to be working in the battleground states for the undecided voters. I think a lot of people tune this type of rhetoric out, and they're just like, I don't want to hear any more of this, and they'd rather hear about what he's doing on immigration, what he's doing on the economy. So where it does work for his base, I don't think it works for the independent voters.
Donald Trump got 46.1% of the vote his first time out in 2016. He got 46 point something, a little bit more in 2020. There was not a day in his presidency when he had an approval rating of at 50% in any reputable poll. He's always been a minority president, and he understands that. And his challenge has always been, how do you activate some of the angriest people in America to enter politics, which they normally abstain from? And the message of contempt is what pulls them there, not the Paul Ryan agenda, which is not going to work. And that's what he's offering, but he's offering it plus the contempt, and that's what sells.
But what is it today? You said he was a minority president. In our own poll last week, 51% of Americans said he had a successful presidency. That was true in USA Today this summer. Only 37% say the same. So he actually has achieved majority said in retrospect.
His strategy is to get to 47% and pray that the Electoral College works its magic for him. And that's always been a strategy, and that's the only strategy there could possibly be.
Right, and will he continue to talk about that or talk about other things to veer off script, as some Republicans are concerned about? All right, we're going to discuss a little bit more about that in a minute. But first now, communities across the Southeast reeling from Hurricane Helene's aftermath. The powerful storm making landfall late last week. At least 95 people are dead across multiple states, and hundreds more have been reported missing. 30 people are dead in just one North Carolina county.
It was crazy. The water came all the way up to the top of our driveway. And usually, you might see a little bit of flooding down at the bottom of the street, but it came up, another 15 feet more than that. It was pretty, all those houses down there had water up to their kitchen cabinets.
more than 2 million people in the Southeast are still without power this morning. So let's go to meteorologist Elisa Rafa. Elisa, any relief in sight, or are there more concerns along the way?
The rain is stopping, but rivers will still continue to be aggravated and rise in spots because this water has nowhere to go. That's how it destroyed so many roads that have just become impassable, cut off all of these landslides in the mountains there. This is what's left of Helene. You still have a couple of showers in Northern Virginia up towards Washington, but you can see a lot of it is light. We are done with the heavy rain, but it was unprecedented for parts of North Carolina. I mean, here in the mountains from Asheville up towards Boone, you see this bright purple. We're talking about rain totals that were well over a foot for all of these communities. 30 inches for one place in North Carolina. Mountain Home, 17 inches. Greenville, almost a foot of rain. So just incredible. The rivers, again, continuing to be at moderate and major flood stage because the water has nowhere to go. And it will continue to work its way down the watershed towards the coast. So not just the mountain problem, we'll continue to find that rain again, trying to move east, the water in the rivers. We do have that slight risk for excessive rain for parts of Virginia today, where another inch or two of rain is possible. Manu?
All right, Elisa Rafa, thank you for the latest from the Weather Center. And turning back now to the VP debate tomorrow night, where Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, two Midwesterners on opposite ends of the political spectrum, will face off in their first VP debate. The two prospective VPs never before debating on a national stage. The last time each of them formally debated was when they were running for their current offices in 2022.
Scott was very clear in May. He mocked me and said, "No kidding, Sherlock. I'm running for governor to get things done. We're going to ban abortion. Not on our watch. I trust women. I trust them to make their own health care decisions."
It's actually a pretty funny TV commercial, Tim. Credit to your team.
Thank you.
Where he says that he only agrees with his own wife 70% of the time, yet he votes and agrees with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. It must make things a little awkward in the Ryan household, I suppose.
All right, joining me now is Mark McKinnon. He's a former advisor to George W. Bush and John McCain. He's also the creator of Paramount's The Circus. Mark, thank you for joining me this morning. These are two people who come from the Midwest. They have different backgrounds, different political stances. How do you see that playing into their narratives tomorrow night?
Good morning, Manu. Well, the primary mantra for a vice presidential pick is to do no harm. And to date, the difference is that J.D. Vance has done a lot of harm to the Republican ticket so far. And with his, it's all about cats, single women who own them, and Haitian immigrants who he says eat them. Or then he says, no, we made that up to draw attention to it. And so that's my advice for Tim Walz is look out. This guy's loaded for bear because they're both trying to validate that they were the right pick. And Vance is the guy that's been under the gun. Everybody in the Republican Party knows that he's been a problem. He's created dissonance. He's done a lot of harm. So he's going in there to prove to Donald Trump and the Republican Party that he was the right pick. So I think he's going to be loaded for bear. And that's my advice to Walz is look out. This guy's coming in loaded and he's coming in strong.
So you write in your latest article for Variety, Vance, to be fair, smart, just ask him. Yale educated, best-selling author, venture capitalist, and he's reportedly prepping hard. The goal for Walz should be do whatever he can to preserve and enhance his own stature is genuine. He's not going to outsmart Vance, and he should not try, but he can easily outhuman Vance. The recipe for a successful night on Tuesday for Vance or Walz is simple. Do no harm. But Walz should be aware. He's facing a pit bull raring to come off the leash. This is what you're suggesting right now here, Mark. I'm wondering, do you think that Vance, who's hurting or helping their ticket right now? Is Vance hurting or helping Trump? Is he making no difference in this race? And what about Walz?
Well, I think Walz has exceeded expectations and Vance has not risen to expectations. As I said, I think he has done harm. I think the whole cat lady thing. I mean, there's video surfacing every other day with Vance attacking women in some form or another, which has already been a problem for the Republican ticket. So I think that this is going to be. I think he's really looking forward to this opportunity to validate that he was the right pick. They're going after each other. I mean, Walz's brand is authenticity, so that's what Vance is going to try and pick apart. And of course, Walz is going to do the same to Vance to suggest that he's a phony, that he's simply ambitious, abandoned his principles. There's also audio that surfaced recently about just how much that Vance thought Trump was a bad nominee for the party. So he's going to have to answer for that. At the end of the day, maybe won't make that much difference for the outcome of the election, but it's going to make an outcome for the difference on just how people feel about whether or not this was the right pick for each candidate.
All right, Mark McKinnon, appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your insight and expertise. Really appreciate it. And continuing this conversation on the 2024 race in a show that has been influencing our national conversation around politics for half a century.
Man, it's cool. I'm going to be president. That's wicked.
What's that language there, son?
Hillary and I don't agree on everything.
Donald said he was going to be tough on Mexico, but when he met with the president, he choked.
Wrong. Trademark.
He's also said he's going to be tough on Russia, but he's basically Putin's puppet.
Liar. Trademark.
Saturday Night Live returning to the air this weekend for its milestone 50th season, just in time for the last leg of the presidential campaign. Its star-studded cold open, taking on impressions of every 2024 election season candidate and character.
My campaign is like the Sabrina Carpenter song, Espresso. The lyrics are vague, but the vibe slaps.
Folks, I haven't been this excited since I got a 10% rebate on a leaf blower from Menards.
I, for one, can't wait to decorate the White House for Christmas. The theme will be Hanukkah.
They say that me blaming the Democrats for inciting violence is the pot calling the kettle black. But frankly, I didn't know the kettle was black until very recently I thought the kettle was Indian.
I'll tell you what I'm doing here, getting this crowd hyped.
All right, what do we think? It was pretty funny. There were some good ones.
Good stuff. Maya Rudolph, I got to tell you, my wife is extremely happy that she is coming back. Jim Gaffigan as Tim Walz.
He nailed it. Gaffigan nailed it on Walz. You didn't show it, but you know who else was brilliant this weekend? Dana Carvey coming back. Right. He absolutely cooked.
Pause right there. You say we don't have it? In fact, we do have it. We do have it. Roll the tape.
And by the way, the fact of the matter is,
The rich don't pay their fair share.
they got to pay the fair share. We got to build back better. Build back the better, the better, the better. Build back the better. Can't believe it's not butter.
Thank you to Biden. Thank you so much.
It'd be funny if it weren't tragic, tragically true. But Dana, thank God for Dana Carvey. He's probably one of the top 2 or 3 of all time on this stuff.
He really is. He's done George H.W. Bush so well, Joe Biden so well. But the interesting thing is, of course, this could always could reinforce people's impressions. And we laugh about it, but it could have some impact about how people actually view these candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's part of pop culture. It's like the Taylor Swift endorsement. It's just fun, and we have a couple more weeks of it, and it's entertaining, and it'll be fun to see how it plays out.
What do people know about Sarah Palin? They know. I think they know more about the Tina Fey impression of. You know what I mean? It can set in like the image of you. This can absolutely make a huge difference. So like on the Gaffigan thing, he nailed Walz. I mean, the weird gesticulating and the hand, he nailed it. But
Gaffigan's from the Midwest too, though.
Yeah, he got it.
I mean, he really, he has it in his blood.
Unfortunately, the good Donald Trump impression would be actionable. No one does that because the idea that you play him as like Don Corleone, which is what he is, that is something you can't do on TV. Maybe it isn't even funny. Maybe it's just sad.
I mean, you mentioned the Sarah Palin thing, and that was back then, right? It was people who are tuning in to Saturday Night Live. Yeah, there's people who are knee deep in politics who know everything that's going on and watching everything that's going on. But some people are just casual viewers, right? And they'll tune in, they'll see someone being ridiculed, and maybe they'll think, well, I don't like him or her that much.
And they're also getting their clips on TikTok and Instagram and other places. So it has a long legs here, and that's people are going to get their views there.
You know less about the VPs. Yep. So the impressions of the VPs can take hold because often the performers doing them are just better than the VPs themselves. I mean, the Harris impression, she was the VP. And so the Maya Rudolph impression of Harris is, I think, for a lot of people, a real thing, a real burned-in image for them.
I think many more people are seeing on TikTok the remix of J.D. Vance saying, "I'm a never Trump guy," and people dancing to it. That TikTok is so powerful, and that when you say what is branding people is the sight of hundreds and hundreds of women dancing to J.D. Vance saying, "I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him." And I was going on TV and be a Trump guy and like him.
I'm sure we'll see much more of this in the weeks to come. All right, thank you, panel, for joining me this morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Manu Raju in for Casey Hunt. CNN News Central starts right now.
Don't miss the new CNN film about the man who redefined American political campaigns.
He is the smartest son of a who's ever done this for a living.
Carville, Winning is Everything, Stupid. Saturday at 7 Eastern on CNN.